Well, let's get more on this now with James Dorsey. He's a senior fellow at Singapore's S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Great to have you back with us, James. Now, as we see all of this diplomatic activity currently taking place in West Jerusalem, in Doha, we're seeing signs that the US side, for its part, is cautiously optimistic that progress is being made towards another truce agreement. What's your view? Are we in fact close to another agreement?
This is a very complex and in some ways intransparent process in the sense that we don't know exactly what is being discussed in Doha. What we do know is several things. The United States is putting a positive spin on this, saying that the talks have been constructive. The Qataris have been much more circumspect in what they've said. And Hamas has said that it will only return to the negotiating table if we're discussing the May 31 proposal by President Biden, as it was presented on the 31st of May. Now, there are two aspects here. If you look closely at the proposal on the 31st of May, it does not guarantee a permanent end to the war. What it does is have a first phase in which hostages and captives will be exchanged, and the war will be temporarily halted. And then it involves the beginning of negotiations that would flow over into the second stage for a permanent ceasefire. And the ceasefire in the second phase would hold as long as those negotiations go on. With other words, either party could pull out at any given moment. So Hamas, in a sense, has made a concession there. The other layer that we're not seeing is that while the United States puts a positive spin on the negotiations, and there may have been progress, we just simply don't know, they're at the same time mulling what they may do if these talks fail, primarily because of intransigence on the part of Prime Minister Netanyahu. And there are various options that they're discussing.
And part of the reason why Hamas is, for now at least, sitting out from these latest talks is that it says Israel is adding even more conditions to a proposed truce, essentially implying that Israel really isn't interested in a permanent ceasefire. Is that your view as well? Do you think that there is a genuine desire from this current Israeli administration to end hostilities in Gaza?
I think it's both. With other words, there is a more or less unanimous feeling that Prime Minister Netanyahu has been undermining the negotiations with new demands, and that he wants to prolong the war. And of course, his insistence, which makes no sense. You either negotiate a ceasefire or you insist on the war continuing. So what he wants is a ceasefire, get some of the hostages out, and then he wants to continue the war. And that doesn't bode well for the negotiations. Having said that, it's also true that Israel, even if it wanted a permanent ceasefire, would try and maintain some kind of military presence in Gaza, something that Hamas rejects and Egypt, one of the mediators, rejects, particularly as it relates to the Egyptian-Gazan border. So I think it's a mix of both, with the fundamental underlying issue that the Prime Minister Netanyahu, until now, has drawn this process out and tried to undermine it.
Okay, James Dorsey, we'll leave there for now. Thanks so much again for joining us here on the program.
Thank you for having me.